Good evening. We're going to call the July regular Board of Education meeting to order and start with a resuscitation of our vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. We also have a resolution tonight in support of Disability Pride Month, and I'm going to ask Board Member Vandermeulen to read our resolution.
As I sit here at the courthouse waiting for a client, cannot underestimate how far the disability movement has come in 34 years. 34 years ago, buildings didn't have to be accessible. 34 years ago, the majority of individuals with disabilities lived in institutions. 34 years ago, individuals with disabilities were educated in segregated schools. 34 years ago, I was 12 years old. Happy Disability Pride Month. Whereas we, the Madison Metropolitan School District School Board, strongly support the disability pride movement. Whereas 1,275,864 adults in Wisconsin have a disability. This is equal to 28%, or about 1 in 4 adults, according to the CDC. Disability Pride Month celebrates people with disabilities, their identities, their cultures, and their contributions to society. On March 12, 1990, over 1,000 people marched from the White House to the U.S. Capitol to demand that Congress pass the Americans with Disabilities Act. They crawled out of the wheelchairs and up the courthouse stairs, and this was known as the Capitol stairs. This was known as the Capitol crawl, and what further pushed the ADA to be passed. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law on July 26, 1990, Disability Pride is a movement intended to celebrate the history of the disability rights movement and people with disabilities as positive contributors to society. Whereas people with a disability remain at an increased risk of experiencing discrimination, isolation, and inequities. Whereas people with disabilities are vital and make meaningful contributions to the American arts, science, healthcare, technology, sports, education, law, and many more sectors. And whereas Disability Pride Month is celebrated in July by Americans across the country, now therefore be resolved that the Madison Metropolitan School Board, one, expresses the support for July to be designated as Disability Pride Month. Two, calls on individuals with disabilities, calls on individuals with disabilities, deaf individuals, autistic individuals, schools, district staff, scholars, interest group, and allies, A, to observe Disability Pride Month with appropriate celebration activities, B, take an active role in the prevention of, exclusion of, and discrimination against people with disabilities, and C, actively speak out against ableism and ableist portrayals in media, music, the workplace, and society as a whole. Be this established on this day, and that this be permanently imprinted in the records of the MMSD minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. We also have a remembrance tonight of one of our student scholars, and I'm going to ask Vice President Pearson to do the remembrance.
We'd like to ask for a moment of silence this evening for our district to recognize the passing of Essence Edwards, who was a Leopold Scholar preparing to be a sixth grader at Badger Rock Middle School. Essence is remembered as someone who could light up a room with her radiant smile and joyful spirit, bringing warmth and happiness to everyone around her. She wore her heart on her sleeve and had a deep love for connection, understanding, and inclusion, always making an effort to welcome others. She was a caring big sister, an inquisitive scholar, and a cherished friend whose kindness and brilliance left a lasting impact. Her presence will be deeply missed, but the memory of her empathy and joy will continue to inspire and live on in the hearts of those who know her or knew her. Essence passing has taken a significant toll on so many students and staff in the Leopold, Lincoln, and Midvale community, and we remember them tonight. Please join me in participating in a moment of silence in honor of Essence Edwards. Thank you.
We will now transition to our public input. There were no written statements submitted for this meeting. And I believe we have 3 online registered speakers and 1 in-person speaker. We'll start with our online speakers, please.
Our first online speaker is Richard McGregory. I think you're muted.
I think you're correct. Good evening, board members. I'm speaking tonight as the chair of the Education Committee of Blacks for Political and Social Action in Dane County. My remarks are about the need for MMSD to continue pursuing Goal 3 of the MMSD Strategic Framework. African American children and youth will excel in school. And the work of our Education Committee to make sure the faces of Black students in MMSD are seen, served, and supported. This work is an attempt to address students and families reporting feelings of being unseen by the district during our 2023 and 2024 Black Parent Summit events. In the framework we've been sharing, F is for financial, ensuring adequate resources are being expended to reach Black excellence in pursuit of Goal 3. A is for academic, making sure Black students have a shot to be full participants in the economy and community by making improvement on the state reading assessment and ACT exam each year. C is for communication, making the commitment to hear the voices of the community by attending the annual Black Parent Summit and quarterly follow-up meetings. And E is for expectations, making a commitment to continuous improvement in the following areas: reducing within school segregation, increasing diversity in instructional positions, and improving school climate for Black students, staff, and families. New to the framework based upon our feedback from the 2024 summit is S. S is for study and success, working in partnership to interrogate spaces where Black students are having success and using the information gained to inform budgetary, personnel, and programmatic decisions. For example, things such as surveying the 146 Black students and their families. These are the students who tested proficient in ELA in 2023. Using this information to find out what conditions are responsible for their success. Another idea for studying success would be conducting focus groups with Black high school students who are doing well in advanced placement, dual enrollment classes, or the arts. I don't know what happened there, but I lost you for a second. I'll continue. I'd like to thank district administration for engaging us last year in dialogue. And we appreciate that you indicated that you have some agreement about the challenges faced by our Black and Brown students, but the lack of explicitly stated agreement with the original FACE framework by the school board or district administration did beg the question of whether we actually have shared interests in partnering to assist Black students and families change their academic, employment, income, and wealth trajectories. Remember, according to the NAEP, Wisconsin still has the largest educational disparities in the nation in elementary and middle school reading and math. And unfortunately, MMSD's achievement gaps on state reading and math assessments continue to exceed the state average. Therefore, we are requesting MMSD board members and district administration make an explicit commitment to pursuing the goals in our FACES framework, funding Black excellence efforts related to Goal 3 of your strategic framework at a level reflective of the proportion of Black students in the district, making a 10 percentage point improvement on state reading assessment scores each year for Black students, improving ACT scores for Black students by 1 skill point each year, committing to participate in the annual Black Parent Summit and quarterly follow-up meetings, reducing within school segregation in the aftermath of the ill-advised December 2022 decision to continue segregated courses in our high schools, increasing the proportion of Black professionals in instructional positions, improving climate study scores for Black students, staff, and families, and committing to partner with Blacks for Political and Social Action in Dane County on studying areas of Black student success. Thank you for listening. We look forward to the possibility of working with you on shared interests in ensuring Black students and families feel seen and heard as they engage with MMSD, our district.
Thank you. As a reminder, we're setting a 3-minute timer, and when you hear the chime, that's the end of your 3 minutes. And our next speaker is David Hart.
Thank you. Dr. McGregory pointed out many of the things that I'd like to share. I'm speaking on behalf of Blacks for Political and Social Action in Dane County. I'm the president. I'm speaking to the goal 3 of the strategic framework that Black children will excel in school. I think Dr. McGregory pointed out that in February, we talked about the F. March, we talked about the A, and in April, we talked about the C. And then we held our Black Parent Summit, and we were certainly pleased to see two of the board members present there. We'd like to thank the interim administration for engaging with us in the last several instances of challenging but constructive dialogue, and certainly the dialogue suggested that there was some agreement about the literacy and other academic challenges faced by all too many Black and Brown children and students and scholars in our community that are certainly important to address. However, the lack of explicitly stated agreement in the original FACE framework brought into question whether there's some shared interests in partnering to assist Black students and families with their academic, employment, and income trajectories. Just as a word of notation, in 2022, the state of Wisconsin had the largest educational disparities in the nation in elementary and middle school reading and math. Unfortunately, MMSD's achievement gaps on the state reading and math assessment exceed the state average, and those gaps are exacerbated by lack of access to Black and Brown students to rigorous curriculum, high demand co-curricular activities, and instructional role models who share similar backgrounds. And this lack of access amplifies the disengagement of students from historically excluded groups that feel, they certainly feel excluded from the process and from school environment and their education. And so, as Dr. McGregory pointed out, and I will just rise to support and insulate his recommendations because we have adopted them as our own. We certainly are calling for an addressing of the FACES framework of our discussion and proposal of adequately funding Black excellence efforts related to Goal 3 for the strategic framework, making 10 percentage point improvement in state reading and assessment scores for Black students, improving ACT scores for Black students, especially 1% of the point scale, committing to participate in annual Black Summit, the Parent Summit, and reducing within school segregation, increasing Black proportion of Black professionals in instructional positions, improving climate study scores for Black students, staff, and family, and committing to partner with BPSA on studying areas of Black student success. I certainly thank you for listening, and we look forward to partnering with you in the future.
Thank you. Our final online speaker is Kirby Mack.
Good evening. In 2021, the MMSD board mandated the creation of a recruitment and retention plan to address the district's ongoing challenges in hiring and retaining Black and Brown teachers. Despite community-wide calls for action implementing, the plan has been inconsistently pursued, revealing a disturbing pattern of inaction and inequity within the district. Blacks for Political and Social Action has long advocated for the intentional efforts to recruit and hire Black teachers. While the initial directive for recruitment and retention plan offered hope, Subsequent events have demonstrated a clear lack of commitment to this critical goal. In June of 2022, the 22-23 recruitment and retention plan was developed by the former HR director with some input from the hired consultant. This plan was given to the incoming director prior to the summer of 2023. In June of 2023, an HR staffing manager and acquisition talent personnel were hired to support the HR department in this effort. Last year, the 2022-23 plan expired and MMSD board has not addressed the issue by holding a work session to ask about accomplishments as a result of the established metrics and deliverables that was in that plan. Neither has the board asked the current HR director to create a 23-24 plan, nor a 24-25 recruitment and retention plan. The school board and previous interim district leadership failed to hold any individual accountable for its implementation, particularly non-Black managers who occupy high-level HR positions. This stands in stark contrast to the accountability measures imposed on previous leadership, which was Black. The absence of a comprehensive recruitment and retention plan for Black and brown teachers has a severe consequence for Black students who research tells us benefit greatly from having Black educators. It is imperative that MMSD and the board current leadership take needed action steps to rectify this situation. In HR, you have several positions assigned to that office that make well over six figures. These positions include an executive director who makes $170,000 and a HR systems director who's in that category as well. We are asking that you hold the non-Black managers in HR accountable, just as you held the former Black director and superintendent accountable for creating and implementing this plan. We're asking that you, number one, require that the district to update and implement the 22-23 recruitment and retention plan or create a new one. Number two, hold all relevant personnel, regardless of race and ethnicity, accountable for the plan's execution. Three, develop a transparent process for monitoring and evaluating progress, which includes discussing accomplishments, challenges, and deliverables at a formal work session. And in conclusion, the MMSD must demonstrate a genuine commitment to racial equity by prioritizing recruitment and retention of Black and brown teachers. We urge the board to take swift and decisive action to address this critical issue. Thank you.
Thank you to our online speakers. We have one in-person speaker, Del Underbaki. And just as a reminder, as I try to do each month, as you come forward for your public comments, you'll see there's a clock up here with 3 minutes. And on the podium, there is a little black box. When you get to about 30 seconds remaining, the light will turn from green to yellow. And then when your time is up, you'll be at red. If you are still concluding your thought, when the timer goes off, take 10, 20 seconds to finish up. And thank you so much for coming.
Tonight's agenda includes a request for renewal for the on track to graduation plan. The data dashboard results for the literacy achievement for Madison's 2023 graduate who's recently received them. It's my understanding that in June of 2023, 1 out of 10 graduates identifying as Black accepted their diploma prepared with proficient levels of literacy. The numbers were a tiny bit better for people who identified as Hispanic, but disturbingly significantly lower for students who had IEPs. Those numbers that I found when you take a trajectory, not a year by year, but a general trajectory going back to 2005, have not significantly changed. So that's one of the things that our advocacy is doing, is trying to expand our vision past the red herring of COVID and acknowledging that this has been a trajectory for the district for a very long time. As you all know, the 2024 campaign season is off and running. This provides me opportunities to not only attend board meetings and school meetings, but it also puts me on street corners, neighborhood corners, food, farmers markets, community festivals. And it provides me opportunity to not only pass out campaign literature, but it also gives me opportunities to talk with people about their concerns. And I have a little poor person's cheat card here where I hand out to everybody to direct our conversation if they want to stand around and talk with me a while. The questions I ask them are the intent of a free education, the consequences of credits earned without literacy, the consequences of a diploma granted without achieving literacy, and the value of a diploma earned without literacy. These are questions and these are conversations I'm having with citizens in your communities. I know there is, share the concerns of your previous speakers about what needs to happen for our most marginalized, vulnerable students. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our speakers tonight. Next, we'll move to approval of the minutes. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated June 24th, 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any corrections or discussion on the minutes from June? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, aye. Megan, your advisory vote? All right, aye, that passes 6-0. And now we'll move into board president's announcements, and Vice President Pearson is also going to help with this. I'll start with celebrating our students. The Board of Education congratulates the almost 2,000 scholars who participated in advanced placement testing last May, just a couple of months ago. Students set a district record for the number of participating students and a record for the amount of AP tests taken. We are very proud of the rigorous courses offered in our district and continue to encourage our students to explore their limitless potential.
Online enrollment begins August 5th. So online enrollment for the upcoming 2024-2025 school year begins August 5th. MMSD supports existing and new families of elementary, middle, and high school students to complete the enrollment process 100% online. We look forward to welcoming our students back into the school in just a few weeks.
And one other acknowledgement for tonight. In tonight's consent agenda, the board would like to acknowledge and thank all of the individuals and organizations that have donated to the district. We would like to recognize the CrossFit Foundation for its $40,000 grant, which will allow our 4 comprehensive high schools to purchase gym equipment and related materials in support of the CrossFit Schools program. So thank you very much to the foundation, CrossFit Foundation. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our superintendent for his announcements and report.
Thank you, President Nichols, members of the board, staff, and community. Thank you for this opportunity. Wrapping up my first official month, although it's hard to call it that because I started in May, as many of you know, but from July 1st on, it is just about the end of the month. It's hard to believe. I want to continue to focus on these three words or beliefs about MMSD. They are people, purpose, and pride. Oh, Jesse, you can cue that up. That was actually perfect. Now, I spoke about this back in April, I believe, with students at Thoreau about what these words mean and how I plan to enact them in the work of embracing the MMSD. And it served as a really good framework for me to consider what opportunities we have and how all of them are also tied together. You should also know that there is going to be an entry plan that is going to go out as soon as even this evening, maybe tomorrow morning, that the whole community will see. Now, I will say entry plans are pretty common for new superintendents, but I'd like to offer that this isn't just a once-in-time plan. This is in many ways speaks to the ways that I want to engage with the community ongoing. So from the first day to midway, through tough times, through good times, through times, and we need information about how to best make decisions that are going to serve our district and our community. Because all the work we do involves people. Relationships matter. They matter so much. And I'll just share a few of the visits I've had these past few weeks. Certainly several of our summer semester locations. I can't say enough about the high quality learning and programming and MSCR programming that our scholars have been able to participate in. Also, thank you to staff, a number of staff who it wasn't uncommon for me to hear. I've been doing this for 20 years. Always a really great thing to hear from our staff. Attended a couple concerts on the square and been able to engage with people and hear some wonderful music. Met the Latino Consortium for Action. I met with several media outlets, including being a guest on Capasa en Nuestra Escuelas en la Movida. New principal orientation. Visited community learning program sites at Bayview, Maydam, Goodman Community Center, along with Mayor Rhodes Conway. And let me tell you, I've been visiting Madison, obviously, as the search process and even before, and seeing the Bayview Foundation and that triangle be under construction. Take yourselves on a trip and go to that community center and look at it from that perspective. Yes, it's beautiful from the outside, but go to that community center and see what's going on in there. And our children and families are so fortunate that we have this community right here in our city. I've continued to meet with MMSD partners and community members. I was welcomed to the United Way of Dane County Board of Directors. Witnessed the unveiling just this weekend of the Vel R. Phillips sculpture, the first African-American to have this honor at a Capitol in the United States. And of course, we have Vel Phillips Memorial High School also sharing this very honorable name. And I also had a wonderful afternoon at the Disability Pride Festival at Warner Park. Understanding it's been going on about 11 years. It was new to me, but what a wonderful time for students, staff, families, and partners to come together. I also want to share a few upcoming events to highlight. The first is the Wisconsin Public Education Network, also known as WPEN. The 10th annual Summer Summit is going to be hosted at La Follette High School this Wednesday, all-day program. The MMSD Job Fair. Yes, you heard it, the MMSD Job Fair. Also on Wednesday, July 31st, 3:30 p.m. till 7:30 p.m. at the Holtzman Learning Center, 333 Holtzman Road. Find the right opportunity for you to make a difference in the future of our students and community, subs, food service, custodians, EAs, and more. If you're interested in learning more about opportunities, please come and attend our MMSD Job Fair, and you can find information online as well. Coming up at the end of August, we're not quite in August yet, but a ribbon cutting events on August 30th. I understand we are going to have a tour around the city to have ribbon cuttings at all of our major renovation projects, comprehensive high school projects that took place that were funded by the 2020 referenda. The ribbon cutting celebrations will also have tours of East La Follette Memorial and West. The Madison community is invited to explore these enhanced learning environments. And once again, it gives us opportunity to thanks and give our heartfelt thanks to the generous support of the Madison community whose contributions have made these improvements possible. And what a wonderful way to reconnect with fellow alumni, engage with current students, and see firsthand the advancements in our schools that will benefit our community for years to come. If you haven't been in them, you're in for a treat. If you'd like to come, as someone who knows our high school as well, who hadn't been back in a long time. Absolutely amazing. Well done, MMSD and community. Many welcome back events for staff coming up in August, including school secretaries, administrators, new educators, and then all staff. We hope staff have been having a restful summer and are eager to return to the classroom. This is our purpose. This is why we choose to be part of MMSD. A quick update on the referendum. To the community, last month, the board voted unanimously to approve 2 referendum questions, one for facilities and one for operations that will appear on the November 5th ballot. We are not alone in budget challenges. State revenue limits have not kept pace with inflation, and we know our district has critical facility needs. 26 of our schools were built more than 60 years ago. Considering that Madison is expected to grow by more than 100,000 people by 2050, it's important to plan for the future and to plan right now. The Board of Education has made significant strides in planning for long-term capital improvements, and I can't thank the board enough for having great faith and great aspiration in how we're going to accomplish this over time. We are focused on providing a quality education to our students. Quality staff and facilities are important to overall student success. We encourage the community to stay informed. Information is available on the website, www.madison.k12.wi.us/referenda. President Nichols, members of the board, this concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gothard. Sounds like you've been busy being out in Madison, hitting the streets, and hopefully you've been enjoying connecting with folks. I'm just trying to bring a little flavor. I mean, it's July, y'all. Okay. All right, back to business. Thank you for your report. All right, so there was no instruction work group in July, so there's no report out on any topics that we discussed. We will have our next instruction work group on Monday, August 5th. And not sure, I don't have any information yet on our topic. We also did not hold an operations work group in July, so there's no report there, but does Board Member Castro want to say anything about the upcoming meeting in August?
Yes, so our next meeting will be held on August 12th next month. Some topics that we'll be talking about will be our Fund 10 balance, the updates to the 2 optional budgets that we passed, one with a passing referenda, one with a non-passing, updates regarding summer school, and then forecasting updates from first student and the transportation going into the fall semester.
Great, thank you. We do have one action item that proceeded through the instruction work group previously. So in June, we had a first draft review of our advanced learning policy. And then we also had a policy workshop last week to look at this policy again. So we want to take some action on this tonight. I move that the Board of Education approve the advanced learning instruction policy as set forth in the document prepared for the July 29th, 2024 regular meeting. The policy will be edited and formatted, but no substantive changes will be made before it becomes effective.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Thank you. Any discussion on this policy? Okay, I see Board Member Vandermeulen and then Board Member Simkin.
First, I'd like to thank Cindy Green and my board for the increased definition of dual exceptionality in the advanced learning program. I think we finally nailed it in a way that everyone feels that they will be allowed and accepted in advanced learning. I appreciate that. Also, I appreciate you putting the statute numbers and links to the plan. Possibly one could make it just a tiny bit bigger font wise, but otherwise it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Simkin?
Thank you. So I want to first recognize how much work has gone into this already and that I wasn't at the last meeting for the discussion, and I'm sorry about that because I took a vacation. I don't feel like the policy appears complete to me, and so I'll be voting no on it today. I think that this iteration of it to me feels pretty disjointed. And there's components of it that I'm not sure why they're in here or how to, and other pieces I'm not sure how we're going to operationalize. When I read it overall, I'm just a little confused at what we have in front of us. I'm not completely clear what the goal of the policy is when I read all of the components that have been put into it, including the commentary at the beginning about our values statements. I would like to have a policy that clearly determines the framework by which the administration then is administering advanced learning in our district. And I just don't see it really clearly articulated here. I would like to go back to the comments that I think we were talking about at the very first discussion about this and that I heard on the recording from last week around how robust the early language learner policy is. And I think there's a clarity to that that I don't see in here. If I was a parent and I was looking to see what my rights are as a person who either has a child that I think should be identified as an advanced learner or a child who is identified, I think the language in here is really kind of muddled and it's hard to see that without understanding nuance that we're not explaining. And so for those reasons, I would prefer that we take this back and work on it further. If we decide to move forward and vote, my vote will be no.
Thank you, Board Member Simkin. Other discussion? Board Member Mosner.
I have a question, which is, if we were not to approve this policy tonight, would that have any ramifications on the advanced learning services that students would be expecting, September 3rd?
Good evening. Your question was if you do not approve it tonight, what happens for the upcoming school year? We would continue with the current policy as is, and we would operate under what the policy is right now.
Okay, I'll add myself to the discussion. I appreciate the perspectives tonight. I will say based on the two reviews that we had June 3rd as well as July 22nd, and then looking at the original policy last updated in 2014, I think a lot of the board's comments and suggestions for edits do appear in tonight's version. So there was a definite suggestion to include the language about what the board is actually responsible for, which includes the language around the board shall, and the references to the statutes are included. In other versions of the policies, the statutes appear at the top of the header. On this policy, it's on the last page. I think that's a edit that probably could be made. There were board members that wanted the removal of one of the ways in which students can be considered an advanced learner. So we had this lengthy discussion about why the development of a positive attitude was listed in some of the earlier versions as one of the learning outcomes, and that has been removed. And then to bring some consistency to the other policy that we had approved in May around our English learners, there was a suggestion to more clearly add an identification of student section, a programming and services section, and family engagement. And some of the robustness in the English learners policy that does not show up in this policy is specific to English learners. So advanced learner students don't necessarily get reclassified like our English language, our English learner students. So that's why some of that language that's in the other policy doesn't appear here. And I think that we're also, and then as Board Member Vandermeulen said, there was a suggestion to include a hyperlink or reference to where the actual plan that we're responsible for can also be found. So I feel like all of the edits and suggestions that board members in previous reviews had brought forward have been incorporated, as well as some additional pieces that were emailed in from, concerned and invested citizens. So I think for me, I guess I'm okay voting yes on this version of the policy, because I feel like as we have been trying to get policies updated, and trying to also use Neola's templates and then still trying to maintain some of our original language, we're trying to find the right balance of how much goes into policy and how much of it is like actual operational and implementation that sits in a different set of guidelines. And I think we're still working through what that balance is. But I do think that tonight's version has addressed most of what came up previously. Board Member Simkit.
So I agree. I think that everything everybody said is in here. And so I've been watching a lot of Top Chef, and you know how they do those competitions where they're all working together and everybody's throwing things in, and then you end up with something that isn't completely clear anymore. I feel like that's what happened here, is that if I was looking at this from the outside, I would be unclear on what the purpose of this policy was, why there were certain components in there, and how it actually impacts my student. I think that all of our ideas got in here, and part of what's happening is we're trying to figure out how to do policy. And the administration is trying to figure out how to be responsive to everything we're saying. And then when everything that everybody says gets in here, I think we lose a little bit of coherence. That's what I'm reading it as.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, well, I appreciate the discussion that we've had, and we have a motion that's already been seconded. So for those that are in favor of approving the advanced learning instructional policy as set forth in the document prepared, aye. Okay, those opposed? Thank you, Board Member Simkin. And Megan, your advisory vote. Thank you. That policy and motion passes tonight, 5-1. All right, we also have some additional action items that proceeded through the operations work group. And again, we have 2 policies tonight, which have been reviewed twice before tonight. So the first one is the policy on our district facilities. I move that the Board of Education approve the use of district facilities policy as set forth in the document prepared for the July 29th, 2024 regular meeting. The policy will be edited and formatted, but no substantive changes will be made before it becomes effective.
Second, Maya.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion or questions on this updated version of the district facilities policy? And just as a reminder, this policy brings forward several district facility policies kind of under this one bigger policy now. So use of school buildings and facilities, before and after school childcare programs, tennis courts, athletic and recreation fields, the Lucier Stadium, all kind of now fit under this bigger policy. All right, seeing no questions or hands for discussion. All right, all those in favor of approving the use of district facilities policy? Aye. All right, I see 6. And Megan, your advisory vote. All right, that passes. Thank you, 6-0. Let's move on to the Title IX policy. I move that the Board of Education approve the Title IX policy as set forth in the document prepared for the July 29th, 2024 regular meeting. The policy will be edited and formatted, but no substantive changes will be made before it becomes effective.
Second, Maya.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions? Board Member Vandermeulen.
I just want to thank everyone in our Title IX coordinator for this policy. Hardest vote I ever had to take was implementing Title IX policy that I did not believe in, that was required by the federal government and in a previous administration. And that was incredibly difficult to do. I'm glad that we now have legislation that is not victim blaming and will actually meet the true meaning and spirit of Title IX. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any other discussion on this policy? All right, seeing no hands, all those in favor of approving the Title IX policy as set forth, aye. And Megan, your advisory vote. Thank you. That passes 6-0. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the July 29th, 2024 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his, her, or their affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated, hereby subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school.
Second, Maya.
Are there any separations? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of adopting and approving the motion set forth in our consent agenda, aye. Megan, your advisory vote. Thank you. That passes 6-0. All right. We will now move on our agenda to other reports to the board. And Board Member Simkin and I are on the City County Schools Collaborative Committee, and I help to co-chair that committee. So I'll do the quick report out. There was a meeting on July 10th. We had a presentation and discussion on the city's referendum. We had a presentation and discussion on the MMSD referendum, and the committee members were engaged in questions and conversations. There was a little bit of the committee's work plan for the second half of 2024. And our next meeting will be on August 14th, where we will continue to come back to driver's education and looking at what's happening at the state level, returning to our committee meeting schedule for the rest of 2024, and then any follow-up on the referendum presentations. Would you add anything, Board Member Simkin?
I would not.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have Student Senate.
There's no new business. We didn't have a meeting.
Next, we have Madison School and Community Recreation Advisory Committee, Board Member Feltham.
Thank you. Last week, MSCR wrapped up the summer semester afternoon programs, but summer programming is far from over. Thousands of participants of all ages will continue to participate in day camps, sports, arts, fitness, and outdoor programs over the next several weeks before we wrap up another great summer. The MSCR Fall Program Guide will be available online this Friday, August 2nd, and will be mailed to district residents the week of August 5th. Fall registration for MMSD residents will begin on Monday, August 12th at noon.
Thank you. Policy Committee, do you guys have a report?
Just a quick report. We met on July 22nd to go over the policies we just approved. And we'll be building out our calendar starting in December for us to start in December to look at a suites of policies. So stay tuned.
Thank you. And Board Governance Committee, Board Member Simkin, can you give that report?
Would love to. So at the June 28th Board of Education retreat, the Board of Education reviewed drafts of our job description, our ways of working, and conflict of interest, all as replacements for policy 1540. We will review these three policies again in the near future and then pursue additional information from school board partners about their governance model.
Thank you. We'll now move on to other business. We have the appointment of our 2024-25 hearing officers. I move that the following resolution be approved. Whereas Madison School Board Policy 4045 and Wisconsin State Statute Section 120.131E provide that the Madison School Board, hereinafter the board, may adopt a resolution in which the board may authorize the use of an independent hearing officer appointed by the board to determine pupil expulsion from school. And whereas such resolution is only effective during the school year it is adopted, and whereas the board desires to adopt such resolution and use independent hearing officers to determine pupil expulsion from school for the 24-25 school year, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the use of an independent hearing officer for the 2024-25 school year to determine a pupil's expulsion from school. And be it further resolved that the following independent hearing officers shall be appointed to the pool of officers. They are David Friedman, Sharice Perry. I need a second. Board Member Vandermeulen,
Second, Board Member Vandermeer.
thank you. Any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, no hands. All those in favor, aye. Megan, your advisory vote. Thank you. That passes 6-0. All right, next is our annual declaration of educational standards. I move that the Board of Education approve the previously adopted English Language Development Standards, WIDA, for English language learners, the Wisconsin Standards for English language arts, physical education, personal financial literacy, youth apprenticeship programming, as developed by Wisconsin educators and experts, the Wisconsin Academic Standards in Mathematics, History, Science, Geography, and technical subjects, as these standards specify what students should know and be able to do in the classroom, and also serve as goals for teaching and learning with a focus on ensuring the MMSD curriculum is historically accurate, inclusive, and culturally.
Second.
Any discussion or questions on these standards or the Declaration of Educational Standards? President Pearson.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there some pieces that have like civic engagement or like part of the standards, or is that not part of the standards?
That would be directed to Cindy Green.
Probably Cindy, sorry.
Yes, the previously adopted social studies standards that were new in the last few years include civic engagement.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, seeing no other hands for questions. All those in favor? Aye. Megan, your advisory vote. Thank you. That passes 6-0. Next, our On Track to Graduation Annual Plan. I move that the Board of Education renew their annual On Track to Graduation Plan so that implementation can continue according to the timeline, and the district may also comply with statutory requirements associated with learners needing a personalized graduation plan.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, aye. And Megan, your advisory vote. Thank you. That passes 6-0. Next, we have a bonus proposal for substitute teachers. I move that the Board of Education approve the bonus proposal for substitute teachers as set forth in the document prepared for the July 29, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Board Member Vandermeulen and Board Member Simkin.
I never thought I would say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We have 221 this year possible. In this rare, narrow circumstance, as in, please don't make a habit of doing this, I can agree to do this based on the fact that the lack of subs would cause an absolute catastrophe at the beginning of school, but I just don't want it policy to normally end up on the board's docket a week before the meeting and in the future. However, we're in a crisis situation and I don't see we have any choice, so I will be supporting this.
Board Member Simkin, thank you.
Thank you. So I was really excited to get this proposal. And I have a couple of questions probably for Jennifer. I am wondering what the total amount we have spent in the last year has been on extra payment to teachers for having to sub in classrooms.
Thank you for your question, Board Member Simkin. So to restate it, you wanted a cost of what it has been for teachers to be in classrooms during the school year?
Yeah, or we can rephrase that as the budgetary implication of being understaffed. What have we had to pay out in order to cover absences?
So one of the items that I looked at to answer that question was class coverage, which is when regular teachers have to or are asked by the principal to work in the classroom when there isn't a sub. So prior to 2022, we were spending less than $10,000 for that. And after that point in time, we were spending about $800,000 for that. It increased exponentially.
Okay, thank you for that figure. So when I look at the amount of money that is set aside for the budgetary impact for this plan, you're talking about half of what we've been spending to support teachers doing coverage.
Yes.
I would like to explore the idea of increasing the bonus for substitutes in our Title I schools from $100 to $200. for a slightly increased number of days. So if we were to look at maybe 7 days in a pay period and move that up to 200, would that still keep us within the amount that we've been spending?
When I did the calculation for that, it put us at about $590,000.
Okay, so I would like to propose that we make an adjustment in order to have the biggest impact at this time. I think that the impact of having teachers giving up their planning time and all of the other things that they do during that time is really hard for us to quantify, but I imagine it has an incredibly negative impact on the classroom and the student's experience. And so I would like to propose that for the second bullet point in here, that it reads an additional bonus of $200 to each daily and long-term substitute teacher who works 7 or more days in the monthly pay period at a school that receives Title I funding. Seven, I'd like to change that to 7. So slight increase and double the money.
So Board Member Simkin, I just want to make sure I have the kind of the amendment to the memo. So you're reading from the second bullet that would read, in addition, we would like to offer an additional bonus of $200 to each daily and long-term substitute teacher who works 7 or more days in the monthly pay period at a school that receives Title I funding.
Yes.
That portion of the, and then can we, is that the only change that we would need to make? I guess I'm asking if there's because the last sentence is this would be paid, the pay period following the pay period in which it says now 5, but it would say 7 or more days were worked.
Yes.
Dr. Gothard, do you have a?
Thank you, President Nichols. I just want to clarify so our staff can be explicitly clear as well. Under the 2 suggested scenarios, it also says that the incentives would be available concurrently and subs could earn up to 200 per month. Would this now be 300? And I just want to make sure that we're clear.
Yes, I would be proposing that change as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to confer with our council. The budget impact part of the memo would likely change, right? So instead of it reading the budgetary impact of this incentive would be between 400,000 and 500,000, it would be higher than that. But I guess I'm wondering if we have the language on the change to the actual bonus amount and the number of days, is that sufficient for us to kind of vote on that? Because the original motion is about approve the bonus proposal in the document prepared for tonight, right? So I'm just trying to figure out in real time, like if we start to change one part of the memo, it kind of changes the document prepared for tonight. So hold on one moment. Can Jennifer, would you be able to give us maybe the range of the budgetary impact? To go up to the
Sure.
$200?
I would put a range of $550,000 to $625,000.
550 to 625. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me just make sure that we are all calibrated on the amended language. So in the document, the section that starts with these incentives would be used to attract and retain substitutes. The recommendations are as follows. There would be no change to the first incentive. So it would stay at $100 to each daily and long-term substitute teacher who works between 5 or more days in the monthly pay period. There is a change to the second incentive, which would now read, in addition, we would like to offer an additional bonus of $200 to each daily and long-term substitute teacher who works 7 or more days in the monthly pay period at a school that receives Title I funding. This would be paid the pay period following the pay period in which the 7 or more days were worked. The next sentence would change to the incentives for substitutes would be available concurrently, and subs could earn up to $300 per month in bonus payments. That's correct, Jennifer? Okay. The budget impact would now change to an analysis of the number of days worked by substitute teachers in the last 2 school years shows that the budgetary impact of this incentive would be between approximately, I'm going to insert that since we're doing this in real time, $550,000 to $625,000 annually to implement. Is that okay? All right. And then there would be one last change under the section called payment and tracking. Substitutes are paid monthly, no change. After each pay period, the payroll team analyzes the completed days of substitute positions from that month, no change. If a substitute qualifies for the incentive amount would be paid on the pay period following the pay period in which 7 or more days were worked. That seems only applicable for those substitutes in the Title I schools and not the ones in the first incentive. So it should be 5 or more, 5 or more. Okay, so great solution. So the pay period following the pay period in which 5 or more days were worked. Okay, and that would be inclusive of the 7. Thank you. All right, we've heard the changes. Board Member Vandermeulen, you had already seconded. Board Member Mosner-Feltham, discussion.
I want to start by, I'm definitely in favor of incentivizing subs to work in our schools. A question that I have, and I might abstain from this particular amendment just because I haven't got a lot of time to think about it. And I'm curious, like I know that many subs have advocated for rather than this was like a one-time bonus, like earning long-term sub pay as an incentive rather than the per diem sub rates. So I'm kind of curious about how that would compare in terms of financial impact. And then the other thing that I'm kind of curious is about, like, does this apply to subs in long-term roles, or would it only be subs? I see nods. Okay, so I got that second question answered. Is there, can you speak to sort of like how the bonus incentive would compare to moving to the long-term sub rate for folks who are in our schools frequently?
Thank you for your question. And just let me rephrase it so that I make sure that I understood what you were asking for. You wanted to know the impact on how for the long-term daily subs in the schools?
No, so when I talk to subs, one of the things that they tell me is that they want to per diem subs, right, who are taking daily
Mhm.
subs at different sites, that they make less than someone who's in a long-term sub. And when I talk to subs, we talk about what would make this job better and more doable, and I could commit to it more. What I've heard is, I haven't heard a bonus, but like everybody loves bonuses for sure. And I'm gonna vote yes. But I'm curious about when folks are saying what we really want is to be at the long-term rate when we're here often. How would that look financially as compared to the up to $300?
So the long-term sub rate is for any sub teacher who takes a position for that same teacher who is in that building, and the same assignment. And so they're already incentivized. We included them in this. We wanted to incentivize those who maybe couldn't take on an assignment that lasted 5 days in a row or 7 days in a row, so that they could have this additional money.
So my question is, for someone who takes 7 different jobs at a Title I school, right now they would make $300 or 200, maybe 300 extra, which we've said, what was the number, the final number for it that we just adjusted? Right. But so doing that, we think would be up to $500,000, or maybe like 50 now if we go up. So I'm curious how that 650 would compare with paying those same people the long-term rate for those 7. Do you know what I mean? Is it much more expensive? Is it like, am I being totally unclear?
You are not being unclear. I did not prepare that
Okay, sure,
for
problem.
this
That's fine.
this evening.
I still think it's a great idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to not have prepared that.
That's totally fine. My other question is, how many days does a sub have to work per month to get health insurance?
Could you repeat the last part of your question?
How many days of work does a substitute have to do an MMSD to be eligible for MMSD health insurance?
Oh, for the health insurance, we look, that's a look back from the previous year. So they have to have 140 days that they worked in the previous year.
Got it. So quite a lot.
Quite a lot,
Okay.
yes.
Thanks.
Vice President Pearson. Thank you, Jennifer. I don't know if you have a question.
Yeah, it probably is for Jennifer, but could be for Bob too, who knows? So my question is about retired teachers. We have a lot of retired teachers who come back as subs and may not do the long-term sub, but may do this. So how does this impact them? And I'm thinking in terms of the retirements, but also their hours that they are required, that they can only work.
So the Wisconsin retirement system restricts people who have retired and who are collecting their annuity from working more than 880 hours in a rolling 12-month period. So that still means that our retirees can work 110 days for us. So they certainly can take advantage of this.
And then I guess just another question, I'll vote in favor of this, but how does this fit into our overall strategy in hiring? Because, and that's for educators, because like some of my kids have had a sub constantly in some of their classes in middle school, different subs a lot. And so I guess what is our strategy? Because this is one strategy to get folks in the door as soon as possible to help support. But it's not a sustainable strategy. So I guess what is our strategy and coupled with this that we can look forward to receiving, and or your thoughts of where we're moving towards?
So we definitely would like to see a teacher in every single classroom as we're starting this school year. We had over 30,000 30,000 absences last year. So we're hoping that having additional subs means that there are fewer call-offs, meaning that we don't have as much burnout, that it's higher retention. I was drawing a chart on the back of this piece of paper about how all of these things work together. You know, I think that there's, you know, there's still work that we can, that's been proposed in the budget that we have to look at for salaries and some other things like that. The job fair certainly will help us get people who are interested in coming to work for MMSD, making sure that we can, you know, find a place for them. I'm not sure that that answered all of your question, but.
No, it doesn't really, but I think one of my frustrations is that since I've been on the board, we still, and I know I've mentioned this before to you, and I've mentioned this in our meetings a few times. Since I've been here, we necessarily haven't had a clear sense as to what our actual strategy is in hiring, and a clear sense as to like also retaining. And I think one of my frustrations is that we're constantly piecemealing, and I understand like there's been a lot of transition, and I understand that the labor market right now for educators and staff is also very limited. But I do think that we should probably hopefully get something soon, because I don't want to keep having to invest in piecemealing and paying folks, especially since we have some really big decisions that we need to make, and the community also has big decisions to make. And I think it will fare us better to make sure that we have something concrete that we can say, this is our thoughts, even if it might not pan out the way that we hope. At least we have something to say, this is where we're moving towards. And so I just wanted just to voice that, and it's not necessarily you, it's just in the system right now, and being here for now almost 4 years and having the same conversations and asking the same question, and not necessarily getting the result that we're kind of asking for. So I just wanted just to put that out there, and I know you guys are working on it, but hopefully we can get it soon. And my hope is get it very soon, so that we can also start planning for next year, because this is also the time where we're also starting to plan for next year as well.
Vice President Pearson, I appreciate you bringing this up. And I think, you know, our staff, many who are here, led a Culture and Climate Institute today. And the focus of that was really thinking about the kinds of conditions, the kinds of environments we want for our scholars to thrive. We need to do the same for staff as well, and included in staff are substitute teachers. It is not uncommon to hear a substitute teacher report back that they will never go back to school X because of how it felt to be there. They weren't seen, they weren't given direction. And I think there are systemic things that we can do to make that assignment better, to make our subs feel like an equal part of our system. They're vital right now. We know this. One other quick clarification I'll make, Board Member Vandermeulen at the beginning mentioned 221 vacancies. That's true for all staff, but we're less than, no, that's okay. I just want to make sure that the community isn't hearing this. We're less than half for teachers. We're tracking this daily, and we're working really hard to try to make sure that we're fully staffed by day one, which is would be a great place for us to start. But there's no doubt we're going to have people, you know, that have to leave their assignment. I mean, it's inevitable, but I want our subs to make sure that they feel welcome. Part of the incentive here is to reduce the strain that it places on all in the school when there's not a sub there. It's increasing the amount that we can call from with this incentive. And it's trying to say that as a system, we need to be whole, and we need to be whole every day.
I'll just quickly just respond to that. Thank you for that. And I will say, even for Laura's amendment, I will vote in favor, because I do think, at least from what I hear from folks reporting to me, is that sometimes subs choose non-title schools because of, like you said, the burnout and kind of some of the things that we're also seeing with our young people. So It's good that we are looking then to possibly focus on Title I schools so that we can get more subs in those areas as well and kind of get them concentrated. That's it. Thank you.
And if I could briefly just follow up on that, I mean, language is so important. We've heard tonight in this very space how adults talk about schools, students, whether they're good, bad, tough, hard. All these words really matter as well. And I agree. We need to make sure that all of our schools are places where our community wants to be. That's the only way that we're going to thrive.
I have a question, and then I also saw Board Member Vandermeulen. I think my question is directed at Jennifer. So in the memo that that we received tonight, there was obviously some thinking from your department around the 5 days. And I'm wondering what went into the thinking about the 5 days being tied to the incentive. And I'm just trying to consider Board Member Simpkins' amendment to up it to the 7 days. And so one, if you could just share a little bit more about your rationale for the 5 days. And then I have a more technical question about how you all will be doing the tracking of those days and paying our substitutes. But let's start with the 5 days.
Okay. So I looked at or I had the team and I looked at all of the days that subs had worked last year, and we found that 40% of our subs worked fewer than 5 days over the entire year. So in order to, sort of incentivize those folks to move in and take more positions, we thought that offering this bonus structure would help with that. We also have a large number of subs who work between 5 and 9 days. So
40% of the subs last year worked fewer than 5 days a month or fewer than 5 days in a total academic year?
a month.
A month, okay.
They worked fewer than 5 days.
And then for the folks that you said, so that's 60%,
Mhm.
is that just a range of anywhere from like 1 day a month or all the way up?
50% is 5 days or more.
So 60% of subs are 5 days or more. Okay. So your thinking was we have 60% of subs who are already, if they were to repeat what they did last year, would be at the 5 or more, and they would be eligible
Yeah.
for this incentive.
Mhm.
And then for the 40% of folks who have never quite made it to the 5 days, maybe this incentive would bring them up a day or two to get them to the 5. So, so I think what I'm trying to separate in my head is this idea of like increasing the days to increase the dollar amount, which on the surface, without having more context, does sound attractive. And then I'm also worried if we push it to 7, could we inadvertently almost make it harder for folks to get the incentive? Do you know what I mean? Like, and so that's what I don't want us to do without kind of considering like, what's the trend around how many days substitutes work? Because what I don't want us to do is to then move forward with the amendment. And then we hear feedback from subs who are like, actually, that doesn't work for me. It's, you made it harder for me to get the incentive, but I could have gotten it at the 5 days and would have even appreciated, you know what I mean? So I think that's what I'm looking at you only because you made the amendment. So I was just trying to figure it out. So I don't know, Jennifer, do you have any reactions before I return back to like the difference between 5 and 7, or, and I'm not asking you to make a decision for me. I'm just trying to, you look at this data all the time. So I don't know if that feels like, is it a significant jump to go from 5 to 7, or Is it within the range? It sounds like 60% of subs are 5 days or more. But I don't know if this is who that memo was trying to attract.
We were trying to attract that, that in that 0 to 9 range to try to incentivize them to work for our schools more. I mean, we also, when we looked at the information, like 21 of our schools had a fill rate of less than 70%, and 17 of those schools received title funding. So that was part of what went into the thinking around this. We also know that at 7 days for the same assignment, teachers are getting the long-term rate. And that was why we didn't use, we continued to use 5 as the cutoff, or, the lowest number.
Okay, thank you. And then I had one more, like, just technically connected question, which is technical question. So in the memo, you also have a section called payment and tracking, where it talks about substitutes being paid monthly. And after each pay period, you all will analyze the completed number of days that the substitute worked that month. And if they qualify, so if it's at 7 days or 5 days, the incentive would be paid on the pay period following the pay period in which those days were worked. So can you break that down, just in like layman's terms? If the substitute works September, got the 7 days in September.
It would be, I specifically put in pay periods, and our pay periods run from the 16th of one month to the 15th of the next month. So we're looking at that. That's the month that we're looking at.
Perfect.
We always have to do a look back because we can't, we want to make sure that the payrolls are finalized, that we have the accurate data, and then on the next month, we can make sure that they're getting the bonus.
Okay, so if I'm the substitute and I worked my 7 days between September 16th and October 15th, and you all have verified that, I would see the bonus in the
December,
No.
on December 1st.
on what, say it again?
December 1st. Because
September.
September 16th to October 15th is paid on November 1st. So you would see it on December 1st, because that's the pay period. That's the payroll following.
Thank you. Thank you. That helps. Okay, Board Member Simpkin, did you want me to come? Oh, I'm sorry, Board Member Vandermeulen. I'm going to come back to you, Board Member Simpkin, and then Board Member Mosner-Feltham.
So I guess I wanted to talk a little bit more about the move from 5 to 7 days. It wasn't entirely arbitrary. I did talk to Dr. McCray a little bit about how many absences we have in our Title I schools, and if there'd be any difficulty, like we'd have so many subs that are looking to get in that they wouldn't. That's not a problem. There's plenty of openings. And so in my mind, it was let's think about really a substantial impact on a person's income for adding a couple more days and for focusing in on some of our schools that have been having a little more difficulty maintaining substitutes. And so I don't want to increase it if that means the number of days, if that means that somehow there's going to be a negative impact. But I do see, like, between, if somebody hits 5 days, they'll still get that $100. And then it's a real substantial jump to add another 200. And to me, I think that would be motivation.
Board Member Mosner-Feltham.
One more really super small question. Would this also impact subs and other types of subs besides teachers, like SEA subs or clerical subs, or is this strictly for teaching subs? I worry about that. I still think it's a great idea and I'm still gonna vote yes, but I worry about I worry about it and I wonder if we'll come back to that. I hope we'll come back to that, I guess is what I'll say.
Yeah, so Vice President Pearson was just asking, and I think I'll direct this more to Dr. Gothard, if this passes tonight and you all go into implementation and execution of this, when will the board get a report back on whether or not this has been successful and or just the current status of how many substitutes you were able to attract and kind of retain at the 5 or 7 days and the budget impact?
President Nichols, I think it's always going to take a little bit of time, either by semester or by school year, to really do like-to-like comparisons to interpret whether or not it was the financial incentive that caused this. But again, I think we can look at very early trends and just look at where we are compared to at least give board and our community some updated, feedback in terms of our fill rates and things like that. It is something I plan to watch very carefully and see where I can support and make sure we're not missing any opportunities to make sure that our schools are fully staffed.
All right. So is there any other discussion? We have an amendment to the language that we need to vote on first, which would take the Title I school bonus from $200 and up to 7 days. And then all the subsequent information in the memo changing respectively. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Board Member Mosner-Pelt.
Sorry, just like big respect for everybody who subs. It's super hard. I've done it. It's also super rewarding, but it can be really difficult to not know the school or the students or the lesson plan, or to show up for one job and actually turns out that there's a different job, which is just, it's a normal part of how schools run. So thanks for your work on this, and thanks also to all of the subs who have been working without this and all of the subs of the future who will benefit from it if it passes.
Thank you. All right. So all those in favor of approving the bonus proposal as amended, adding an additional $100 for Title I schools for a total of $200 for 7 days, and the rest of the impacts of that, all those in favor of that amended language, say aye. Okay, those opposed? Abstain. Okay, so we had 5 in favor, 1 abstain, and then Megan, your advisory vote? Okay. Now, okay, so that passed. Now we're going to go back to the original motion. And instead of it saying in the document prepared, I'm going to reread the motion just in the revised document. Okay. So I move that the Board of Education approve the bonus proposal for substitute teachers as set forth in the revised document prepared for the July 29th, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All right. And Megan, your advisory vote. Okay, thank you. That passes 6-0. And thank you, Board Member Simkin, for the amendment. All right, we have no old or new business for this meeting. I hear a motion to adjourn from Board Member Vanderman.
Second.
All in favor? Megan, your advisory vote? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good night.